Hey, I got these buckets of my sweat here. I'm going to need you to take those to. Well, I need you to take one to my old high school and then the rest down to the recycling place. 1, 2, 3, 4. Beep deep da 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 dee dee da 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 da. Stid up bop bop beep bop boo. It's Wednesday. I'm in love. Oh man, I was gonna hold that for a while, but then I giggled. Hey everybody, my name's Jimmy. How are you? I went to the comic book store. Picks up. Hey, excuse me, a little phlegm. First up is this little fella. I don't mean to genderize. I'm very much a case of the sillies. There was a silly web right in front of the door, and I walked right into it. Good lord. This is a little comic book called Hedra. It's by Jesse Lonergan. I know that name from somewhere. My dedication to not knowing anything about these books before I show them into the void. It's really something. It's oversized, magazine size. It's a one shot, and it is as you can maybe tell from the cover, science fiction story. But as has kind of been the case, certainly in comic books since Matt Kindt and Jeff Lemire sort of have broken, that this kind of it's almost like a retro kind of sci-fi, rocket ships and satellites, and it's all very 1950s, and I'm way into it. Kent did it more with spy fiction, and Lemire did it more with superheroes. But that's what this looks like to me. And there's Image puts out mostly sci-fi books, but they're all so damn hip you wouldn't be able to tell. Like, well, now I can't think of any. Southern Cross, although I think that's been done for a while. Sea of Stars, it's Jason Aaron and Jason Latour writing it together. No, I think it's Jason Latour and Jason Aaron, and I think Ivan Brandon is drawing it. He's really good, but the story's kind of meh. And then that's all I can think of off the top of my head, but I really like it. I also kind of chalk it up to Wes Anderson a little bit. Like, he was the guy to kind of bring back. When I was in my 20s when Wes Anderson was becoming a film director of renown, and my friends and we were all like I say, in our mid 20s. And so all the aesthetic of Wes Anderson, I mean, at least to my friends, I know not everybody, he's a kind of an acquired taste for some people, but like, he always has that motif of like library books and stuff like that, and it's all it's a little twee, I will admit, and this also looks a little twee, but I still like it. It's better than hard science fiction, which I have officially declared completely bankrupt. Hard science fiction might have made sense in the 50s and 60s when technology was really starting to, like, computer technology was really starting to take off, as was space exploration. So it made sense that, like, that was what everyone wanted, right? That the dorks who were really into this stuff wanted to know all the diagnostics and the schematics and all this other crap, which I could care less. I like when they unroll a schematic and go, "Hey, we gotta look at the schematic here," but I don't need to know what's on it. I just need characters saying words like schematic. Is that all right? Good. That's eating up 4 minutes. Also, this week I bought this comical book, also from Image Comics. This is Lost Soldiers #1. I don't know anything about this, though I would wager to guess it is a war book of some sort. I'm going to guess even further and say it's in the Nam, because this looks like a jungle background in here. It's written by Alice Cott, who is the main reason I bought this. I'll buy anything Alice Cott writes, but especially because I just read Days of Hate, the series he did 2 years ago with Daniel Zazelj, which I showed off. So I'm even more primed for this guy. The artist is Luca Casalanguida. Now, I'm not familiar with the work of Luca Casalanguida, but I have used my razor-sharp deduction skills to suss out the fact that Luca Casalanguida, an Italian. That's what my gut tells me. And my gut also tells me, and I think I was saying a few weeks back, or who knows, I brought it up before though, but Italy is kind of, as far as comic book artists go, it's a lot like how the Philippines was in the 70s. I mean, I hope they're paying these guys better than they were paying the Philippines guys in the 70s. But yeah, guys like Nestor Redondo and Tony Isabella, Jerry Allen Ganquin. I can't remember how his name. He's not a Bronze Age guy, though. He's more recent. He passed away recently, too, didn't he? Or am I thinking of somebody else? Anyway, I'm sorry. I hope those of you who saw that noticed what I just did. And I want you to live the rest of your lives well assured that when I hear of your death, I'm going to do this. That's a good thing. I think that is, I'd love for people to do that when I die. But I don't know what you guys are up to next week. And finally, last song, number 1 and 2 from Black Mass Comics. These are not new. These are kind of old, but they're new to me. I don't think they're more than... I think number 1 might have come out a year ago. Jim, how did you come across this book? Well, I'm glad you asked. Don't call me Jim. Holly here, Holly Interlandi, happens to be a regular at Galaxy of Comics in Van Nuys, California. But Jimmy, that's your comic book store, I know. So I don't know her, but I was in the shop, gosh, I guess this was about a month ago, and she was in there, and her and Warren were talking about, I heard her telling Warren that the book was back in print, and number 3 was going to come out soon, and she's working on number 4. So after she left, I was too chicken shit to ask her. After she left, I asked Warren, like, what was that all about? And he's like, oh yeah, she writes this book. And I said, well, yeah, I'd like to read it. Because, I mean, I already like indie stuff. I like to support indie stuff. And I like to support locals. So, if there are any comic book creators in Van Nuys who have seen this, let me know and I'll buy your shit. I paid money for that. I'm not just expecting that for free. All right. Again, I don't know what this is about. It looks pretty punk rock, though. I will say that. So, looking forward to those picks of the week. All right, good night. No, I'm kidding. Picks of last week. But, yeah. So, I got a little more reading in this past week than I had thought I might. And I will share some of that with you now. But first, the picks of last week. The actual picks. Not this bullshit. Sorry. First up, we had the Free Comic Book Day version of Bloodshot for 2020 version. So, Free Comic Book Day, as I'm sure I've explained, is now being extended over the whole summer. So they're just kind of dripping and drabbing them out. And each publisher usually does one. Because they don't... That's the thing about Free Comic Book Day. They're only free for the consumer. They're not free for the publisher. They're not free for the creative teams, and they're not free for the retailers. Everybody works on these. I mean, there's not as many story pages, a lot of ads in these books, but they're free. What do you want? But honestly, this should have been called Exo Manowar, because that was the main story. Bloodshot's the first story, but it's only a couple pages long, and then it's a big, long Exo Manowar story. But that's good, because honestly, I'm not familiar. Bloodshot's the Valiant superhero with which I am the most familiar. Unless you count Quantum and Woody. Are they still actually on Valiant, though? Yeah, I think so. Exo Manowar is a story of a warrior from ancient Rome who has somehow managed to live to now. I think it's because, if I remember right, he was a warrior in ancient Rome, and whilst on the battlefield, an alien civilization, I think maybe it was like kind of their last gasp, like kind of a Superman thing, where they sent this suit of armor out into space, and it landed on Earth in, 600 or whatever, and took him back. So maybe it wasn't a Krypton thing, because then he went and lived on this planet for a long time, and then he came back to Earth, and now he's a superhero. It's mostly the suit, really. It's kind of like an Iron Man thing. And if it sounds derivative, it's because it is, but it's superhero comics. In fact, the fact that it's called Exo Manowar, because this came out in the early 90s during the height of X-Men fever, mutant mania. So there's no way they didn't name it Exo Manowar in a bid to get shelf space next to those hot books. Did it work? Actually, yeah. Valiant was really successful for the first few years after Jim Shooter started it, but, you know, it collapsed underneath its own weight, as did most of the comic book industry in the mid to late 90s. But they've been bringing these back, like I said, for the last, actually, it's been like 7 years now, sorry for swearing. And I'm mostly enjoying everything I've bought from Valiant so far. But that's, again, they're hiring guys like Matt Kindt, Christopher Priest, Matt Kindt. No, there's somebody else. Kindt writes a lot for Valiant, though. Like, he's kind of was their Bendis there for a minute, but very much just for a minute. I feel like I needed to calm down by talking about comic books. So this is going to go a little long, but oh well. You got something better to do? I do, technically, but I don't want to. Also, last week I read Chew #1. This is the official follow-up. I wasn't 100%, but it is the official follow-up to Chew, which is spelled Chew. And as I explained last week, it was, or, you know, briefly explained last week, Chew was the story of the not-too-distant future when the bird flu... the bird flu became so globally rampant that all chicken was outlawed. And in the United States, the FDA, therefore, became more of a law enforcement bureau. Like, they had, you know, agents in the field, like the FBI and stuff, where they did not have that before. Because I guess the FDA is technically a law enforcement bureau, but, you know, not very sexy. And further to that, I forgot about this very important wrinkle to Chew, is the main character, Tony Chew, who is the father of this Chew here, who's Antoinette, I believe. That might be his sister. They all have very similar sounding names. His brother's name is Tony Chow, for example. So Tony Chew is a Sebopath, which I don't know if that's a real thing or like a real fake thing, or if it's something that Layman made up, but in the book, it means that he can eat an apple, and as soon as he tastes it, he can visualize, like, he has like it's like a form of telepathy where he can see the tree that it came from and the pesticides that were used on it, and, you know, when it was picked and where it was shipped and everything. Like, he's got the whole thing. And the same thing happens if he eats you know, steak, then he has to relive the cow being slaughtered. So the only food that doesn't create that reaction in him is beets, so he eats a lot of those. But that was, and then so like a lot of the book, since he was a cop, basically, a lot of the book had him tasting murder victims so he could tell what happened to them. This book takes place, it's as though the, you know, the first one ended, I want to say like 2010, maybe 2011 or 2012, somewhere in there. And this book picks up the same point, right? So we're 8 years or however far away it was from the end of the first book. I'm pretty sure it's been a while, but I'm pretty sure Tony got married in that one. I don't think he's married in this one, but he does have a daughter who is also a criminal. So now that's going to be, I would imagine, I think it's going to be like her name, I can't remember her fucking name. It's going to be mostly her adventures, and then he's going to be like playing catch up. But I was glad to see Tony Chew being a major character in this, because I've missed that book. And it's not drawn by Rob Guillory. It is drawn by Dan Boltwood, who is very good. And he does have, Guillory even said as much in the back matter, that Boltwood is his own artist, and he's very, very good. But he has a distinct Rob Guillory vibe, so that will also work nicely. And then also, I read this Villains 100-page giant. In fact, I read 200-page giants this week. I also read Ghosts 100-page giant. I got this from Lone Star, which is my favorite mail order place, because they have the widest selection at the best prices, but then they put these big stupid stickers on it, which I don't like. But oh well. These are both very fun, as you might have imagined that I would say. Yeah, the Villains one, I mean, the Joker story is about what you'd expect. The Poison Ivy story was really good, as was the Darkseid story. And I even had a lot of fun reading the Reverse Flash story, which is a character I know nothing about. I'm not very familiar with the Flash at all. I've got 4 100-page giants of the Flash right out there. This one is for sure my favorite, I think, so far. Really good Spectre story as the main cover story. This is the same one. The Gentleman Ghost, who I'm not even familiar with. I'm assuming that's a Bronze Age character from the 70s. Black Lightning is in this. There's a really good zombie story in this. I'm going nuts for zombies lately. Great stuff. Again, I can't say it enough. Those 100-page giants are worth their weight. They're $5 for 100 pages. You get 4 or 5 stories minimum. You don't need to know anything going in. They're all just standalone stories. So it's like, oh, I haven't read The Flash in a long time, for example. You pick one of them up, and it's like you're right back there where it started. Also this week, oh boy, that I also got from Lone Star was the 5 issues of the War Machine book from the 1992, maybe early 94. That can't be right. No, I think that is right. I think this is actually this part of the book. This one is like the Christmas issue of 94. War Machine has always been one of my favorite characters. Quick thumbnail, Jim Rhodes, who was he was a major in the Air Force. He was a pretty high-ranking officer in the Air Force, and he was also Tony Stark's best friend and personal chauffeur/pilot. And, right, because that's what you do with your best friend, especially when he's black. You didn't see Happy Hogan driving any, limousines around. Or maybe you did. Did Happy Hogan ever look it up? So, I've always liked War Machine. And he's essentially Iron Man. But his suit of armor is way more heavily armed. Like, he's like a Gatling gun and a bunch of machine guns. And it's ridiculous, but that's why I like it. So, in 1995, like early 95, when this was coming out, I was a senior in high school, and I was above it all as far as superheroes went. There were very few. I think there was a book similar to the 100-page giant called Marvel Superheroes Magazine that I would read. And that sucked. But it was like, again, solo stories. I didn't have to get bogged down in continuity, and that was all I was really feeling. So what I'm getting at is I had given up on superhero books, and reading this now is, it really reminded me why. This sucks. This book is really bad. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I'm really glad, and I think I only need another 10 or 12 issues to have a full run. This is issues 11 through 15. I have issues 1 through 10 in trade paperback form, but they never bothered to collect the rest of it because it was awful. This was also a time, if you look here, you see this FW logo. That stands for Force Works, which was another spin-off from Iron Man. So at this time, there was the regular Iron Man title, there was Force Works, and there was War Machine. And so they put the FW on all three to like brand them, which had worked so well with the X-Men, especially in early 95 when the industry was like, you guys, we better get packed up because we're all going to be out of jobs here any minute. And they were by a century's end, certainly. And it's not difficult to see why. All right, I got to wrap this up. Okay, the camera is like, I can't take any more of this shit. I also read this. This is One Punk's Guide to the Ramones by Reverend Norb. Oh, the title is actually Pinhead Einstein's. This is a very quick zine-sized thing that I got from Razor Cake, which is a long-standing punk rock magazine. They've done a bunch of these, though, and I bought this one because it was A, the Ramones, and B, written by Reverend Norb. I can't recommend them enough. You go to their website, though, they have a ton of these. They're like, it'd be like One Punk's Guide, ostensibly to stuff that's not punk. The Ramones clearly are. Although Norb does kind of make the argument that they're not quite, almost, maybe. You have to read it to find out. I gotta go. The thing's gonna end. Right, I gotta do this. B. Hand me the sign. 2, 3, 4, did it, boo.